Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The world is in turmoil right now, and destruction is going on all around us. Now, if we watch nature, we can see that nature is destructive. There was just a hurricane in off the coast of Mexico, a level 5 hurricane that swept over, killed something like 27 people, but in 2 days it was finished. And the destruction was caused, but the destruction ceased. So there is a certain destruction within nature, but the destruction within nature is quite different than the destruction that man causes. Man causes artificial destruction that is beyond the destruction that comes from nature, and man's destruction can be strong enough to eventually destroy the entire world. If you notice shepherds, a couple of shepherds can graze 1,000 sheep. A couple of cowboys can take care of a couple of thousand cows. But if the shepherds distinguished between their sheep, or the cowboys distinguished between the cows and separated the black cows because they liked them more and tried to get them to the best grass and keep the other cows away from the best grass, there would be turmoil and there would be difficulty. And there would be difficulty for the cowboys and difficulty for all of the cows. It wouldn't work the same as if they just kept all the cows together and treated them equally. The difference between nature and man in destruction is nature's destruction comes equally, but it doesn't sustain itself. It doesn't go on and on and on. It comes and it goes. Man's destruction doesn't stop. And it has to do with the fact that man is unable to find unity with other men. This inability to do away with differences, this inability to do away with preferences as to the importance of religion, the importance of a caste, the importance of your color, the importance of your nationality, the importance of your language. All of these things bring about attachments within people that bring about destruction. These attachments cause people to react to the ones they consider different. And this has been one of the challenges for humanity forever. If you trace the last 100 years and you trace the conflicts, you can see they happen over and over and over again. And they're almost always caused by exactly the same reason. You have land that I want. You have a religion that I want to put down. You have a way of being that I want to eradicate. It has to do with one faction wanting to control another faction, and that eventually leads to massacres and wars. It is because of the differences that religions show towards people and that governments show towards people that we have all of these conflicts. in the world. If man were to be able to enter into a state of truth and into a state of justice, then destruction could be halted. But man doesn't seem to be able to do that. His attachments to this world are so powerful and so strong, and man's need to control is so overwhelming that this cycle of destruction just keeps going in the world unceasingly, without people actually looking to the root cause of what causes all of this. Man seems to be unable to look at other men and see them as equal. Man seems to be unable to look at other religions and see them as equal. Man seems to be unable to look at other colors and see them as equal. We are in a constant state of identifying differences and trying to do something about it. Nature is not like that. When it rains, it doesn't pick who the rain goes to. It rains. When the wind comes, it doesn't pick which people the wind blows at. It goes to everyone. A hurricane doesn't pick out people. It blows the entire area. Nature doesn't see differences. And that's why nature's destruction is limited. But man's destruction can end up destroying the world because his hatred and his animosity and his love of difference is so great, they'll go to almost any end to be able to control these separations and get control over the ones they want to be separated from. We have to learn in our own lives how to do away with these differences. We have to learn in our own lives to be able to unite with all of mankind. And we have to be able to do this in a way where we don't pick sides. We have to be able to do this in a way where we are at unity with all sides. 98% of the destruction that happens in this world is artificial by man. 2% of the destruction is by nature. And we need to understand that nature's destruction is very, very small compared to man's destruction. And man, individually, us, we can have a hand in ending this destruction. What is it that we can do? We can become unified, and we can pray for peace for the world. You know, it all depends on your belief system. What is it that you believe? Do you believe that a country's security is handled by its army and its navy and its politicians? Or do you believe that a country's security is taken care of by God? And if you believe that it's taken care of by God, what are you doing on that behalf? Are you actively involved in prayer to have God involved within the world to help end all of the difficulties that we have in the world? Or are you allowing the government to take care of it? Are you allowing the politicians to take care of it? Are you becoming an activist to support various groups? Or have you removed yourself from this world of attachment to the world of transcendence, where you work on a different plane, which plane has a direct effect on this world, yet it's an unseen plane and it has an unseen effect. And because it's unseen, the majority of the world doesn't recognize it and doesn't recognize its power, doesn't recognize its ability, doesn't recognize its capability. Most of the world doesn't believe in God. So if they don't believe in God, what do they believe in? They believe in their own power, and they believe in their own mind, and they believe in their own thought patterns, and they believe in their own ideas, and they give them credence, and then they act on those. We have to understand that mind and desire act on behalf of the elemental world. They act on behalf of differences. Mind and desire are elemental. They are not transcendent. Your mind is not transcendent. God doesn't reside in your mind. God resides in your heart. And if your actions stem from your mind and from your desire, then your actions are going to be egocentric, self-motivated, and on behalf of yourself. If your actions can stem from the heart, where the kingdom of love resides, then the whole attitude towards all these things becomes different. There's the story of Abraham and Sodom and Gomorrah. And God came to Abraham and said that he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham began to argue with God. And he said, if there are 50 good people in Sodom and Gomorrah, would you save it? And God said, yes, but there aren't. And then he said, if there are 40 good people, would you save it? And God said, yes, but there aren't. Then he said 30. And God said, yes, but there aren't. Then he said 20. And God said, yes, but there aren't. 10. Yes, but there aren't. 5. Yes, but there aren't. And then Abraham became ashamed and stopped asking. Can we be among the handful that's needed to save existence? Can we become among those whose relationship with God is such that God would spare humanity because of that relationship? And we can do that. We should do that. It is our imperative to do that. It is our responsibility to humanity to do that. We must become the exemplars of what is correct so that God can save all of mankind because of the ones who are truly connected to him and who are truly without differences, without prejudices, without animosity towards the rest of mankind. This isn't an easy thing, because to do this, we have to purify ourselves. And the mind and desire have picked up all of the traits of this world and hold on to them as if they were real. When you want to plant a crop, you have to look at the soil, and you have to understand the nature of the soil and what the soil needs for that crop. You also, after you plant and you've put certain additives into the soil, you have to put compost on the ground, you have to put fertilizer on the ground, and you have to water all of the seeds so that they will grow. We need to plant a seed within us. the seed of wisdom has to be planted within us. And before we can plant this seed, someone has to give it to us. We have to get it somewhere. It isn't just going to appear in the mist. And the place where this seed of wisdom is found is with the guru or the sheikh or the teacher. The teacher will give you the seed of wisdom. Then you have to plant that seed within you. And then you have to nourish that seed. And how do you nourish that seed of wisdom? Well, you have to watch the way the sheikh acts. You have to watch what he does. You have to watch his interaction with people. You have to watch his qualities. You have to watch what it is that he does. Now, all of us eat, but not all of us can cook. If we can't cook, it makes it difficult to get the meals that we want. We have to either buy them or hire a cook or have somebody around us who can cook. But we can also be with someone who cooks and learn how to cook so that when we're hungry, we can cook. If you have a car and you know how to drive it, you may not know how to fix it. Well, the way to know how to fix it is to work with a mechanic for a while and have him teach you how to fix it. It's the same way with our qualities. We don't necessarily know how to improve our qualities. So we have to be with someone who has improved qualities, who has gone that long path and purified the self. In so doing, we can then begin to purify our self. I spent many, many hours in the presence of my teacher. And very often, absolutely nothing went on except he sat there. But I would watch the way he sat. I would watch the way he greeted people when they came in the room. I would watch how he answered questions to people. I would watch his patience. I would watch his justice. I would watch his point of view. I would watch his consistency. I would watch how he never faltered from his patience and from his justice and from his consistency. I watched his equanimity. I watched his equality. I watched how he treated everyone the same at all times. And I began to understand the nature of what that meant and what it was within you that could bring that on, and what it was within you that you had to give up in order to make that new way possible. And some of the things that you have to give up are the superiority of your race, the superiority of your religion, the superiority of your language, the superiority of your nationality. You have to give up superiority. You have to stop thinking that your way is better than every other way. You have to begin to understand that there is a creation that was done by God, wherein all of his creations have the same equality, the same love from him. God gives his mercy the way he gives rain. It goes to everyone. God gives his kingdom, his love, the way he gives rain. He gives it to everyone. Our Constitution, or actually the Declaration of Independence, was smart enough to understand this. And it said, all men are created equal with inalienable rights. It didn't say some men, even though it meant some men. It didn't say that. It said all men. And this was a new understanding into how governments react to people. And as long as governments treat everyone within the country equally, there will be peace within the country. But when the country begins to differentiate between the people within the country, chaos ensues, difficulty ensues, and destruction ensues. Equality seems to be a very, very difficult thing to find in this world. But we have to understand that equality begins in the home. And we have to be able to treat the members of our household as equals. We have to be able to treat our spouses as equals. We have to be able to treat our children as equals. When one of my children was about 3.5 or 4 years old, I was berating him for something that he did. And he began to cry. And he looked at me and he said, "Daddy, this is your fault." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I'm 4 years old, I don't know any better, and you didn't tell me." From that moment on, I began to talk to him like an adult, and I explained to him everything that I knew whenever there was a situation in the way that I understood it. He's about 45 now, and we're very good friends. The reason being that he knows he's always going to get a straight answer from me. Well, we have to be able to give straight answers to everybody. We can't hold back. We can't see differences. We can't show differences. We have to understand the nature of truth and the nature of justice. If we don't, then the difficulty that the world is in is going to continue. Now, change doesn't happen over masses of people at once. Change happens one person at a time. Change happens through the change in your own heart. And it doesn't take a lot of change to have change occur in this world. Think about the great prophets. Think about Jesus. How many disciples did Jesus have? Jesus had 12 people around him, and he preached this love to 12 people. These 12 people were able to bring this message to the world. It's like that. One heart that becomes open, one heart that becomes purified, one heart that becomes connected to our Lord can change the world. There's a line in the Quran which is very, very important. It says, if you save one life, you have saved all of humanity. Now, conceptually, we have to understand what this means. And what it means is that through your connection to truth and your connection to unity, you make a connection with God. And if you make that connection with God, then you become amongst those who save the world. Why? Because you were able to save one person. You were able to save part of humanity. God can take what you did and multiply it in its immensity to cover millions and billions. But it begins with your act. It begins with you showing that you have the capability of saving one life. You have the capability of bringing an influence to someone that can bring them to the point where they can change, where they can see reality, where they can understand the transcendent nature of God and the transcendent nature of his qualities and become part of that transcendent nature. Within us, there are lots of poisons. There are lots of things within our body that are not doing us any good. And like that, within our mind and within desire, there are lots of things within us that are not doing us any good. Their direction is not taking us to transcendence. Their direction is taking us to the lower levels of existence and the levels of arrogance and anger and destruction. We have to analyze ourselves. Now, man created animals, and animals eat each other, and they kill each other for the sake of food. Man, on the other hand, also kills animals for food, but he also kills men, not for the sake of food, but for the sake of his arrogance, for the sake of his power, for the sake of his need to control. This is something that the animals don't do, but man does. And this tendency in man has to be done away with. Now, we can point, and we do all the time, and say they have to be this way, and they have to be that way, and they should change, and they should become different. The finger should always be pointing at ourselves. And the change should always be occurring within ourselves. And we have to realize that there is immense power in changing the self. There is immense power and influence over the state of existence within this world when we change ourselves. Now, there are pockets of peace in this world. There are pockets of holiness in this world. Why do these pockets exist? Why are there areas that stay peaceful and that stay within godliness? Because the people within those pockets have chosen to be that way. They've chosen not to emphasize the lower aspects of humanity, but to emphasize the transcendent aspects of humanity. And the transcendent aspects of humanity are godly in nature. The only transcendent aspects are godly in nature. All of the transcendent aspects are godly in nature. Man, in his ultimate duty, is supposed to become godly in nature. God has no enemies. Man has enemies. God has no anger. Man has anger. God has no animosity. Man has animosity. Man must learn to rid himself of his anger and his jealousy and his animosity. Man must learn to become at peace within himself. So, is it possible to go to war and be at peace at the same time? Is it possible to hate and be at peace at the same time? Is it possible to be angry and be at peace at the same time? Or do these lower aspects of humanity turn us into something other than what we should be? We have to recognize all of this. We have to recognize in what directions we're going. We have to recognize who it is we are and what it is we're becoming. And we have to set an intention. And that intention has to do with transcendence. And we have to understand that we have to stop acting as if we're going to be here forever. We have to stop thinking that we're going to be here forever. We have to answer for all of our own acts. We're not going to have to answer for anybody else's acts. So we have to stop pointing fingers at everybody else and point at ourselves. Our work is on ourselves, but the influence of that work is beyond our being. It extends to our family, it extends to our friends, it extends to our neighborhoods, it extends to our states, and it extends to our country. The power of one good man is immense and can often be seen in its direct influence. Look at what a man like Gandhi did for his country. Look at what a great teacher or theologian who preaches a message that is easily accessible and is not hypocritical can do for humanity. Look at what a sheikh can do, whose circle may be small, but whose influence spreads and spreads and spreads as that circle grows and grows and grows. We must understand that to change one man can change all of humanity. So think of yourself as that seed that, if that growth occurs within you, that takes you from ordinary man to transcendent man, that the entire world can participate in that and be saved because of it. So understand the immensity of your own being. Understand the immensity of the responsibility that has been placed on each one of our shoulders to become the ones who are the beacons who save humanity because of our relationship with God and because God's love for us becomes so immense because of our transcendent nature that God comes to save all of humanity so that we can also be saved. This kind of thinking is not usual, and man doesn't understand his own importance. Man has to understand his own importance, and man has to understand by withdrawing from hatred, withdrawing from religious animosity, withdrawing from racial prejudice, what the effect of this has. The Quran also says that a country's government is a reflection of the attitudes of the people within the country. So if our attitudes change, our governance will change. If our attitudes change, the ones who got into power will change. The ones who rule us will change. And instead of having dictators, we'll have benign people who are there for the benefit of mankind. The government right now is ruled by self-interest, and it's ruled by people who have self-interest. Of course, they disguise it as interest on behalf of the people, but it's not true. And why is that? Because all of humanity is involved in their own self-interest. They're involved in their own prejudice. They're involved in their own short-sighted view of things. And until that changes, nothing else is going to change. Where's it going to start? Is it going to start with your neighbor? Is it going to start with the people next door? Is it going to start with the people in another state or in another country? Where is the start of humanity going to begin? The answer is it has to start with each of us individually. And our focus has to be on ourselves and bringing ourselves to that state that is a beacon for humanity, because it is entwined with the Creator, entwined with that power that rules all things, entwined with the qualities that are transcendent, entwined with mercy, entwined with compassion, entwined with justice, entwined with truth. If enough of us can find justice and truth in our hearts, the destruction in this world will stop and peace will come to mankind. But as long as the attitudes that prevail continue to prevail, the situation that prevails will continue to be. So if we want to see things turn around, the thing that we have to do is turn ourselves around. It's not going to happen because of your ability at the ballot box. It's not going to happen because of your activism towards certain causes. It's going to happen because of who you become. Each of us has the power to change the world, and each of us has to take on that responsibility. So if we pray, one of the things we should pray for is that God gives us the strength to change. God gives us the strength to understand his qualities and incorporate those qualities into our being. God gives us the strength to walk the gentle path. God gives us the strength to walk the path of love. God gives us the strength to bear animosity with love, to bear difficulty with love, to bear all things with love, and to continue loving under all circumstances. This is what separates man from animals. And this is what's going to save mankind and end destruction. There's no other way. There's no other path. There's no other reality. And all each of us can do is change ourselves. So that has to be the step that we take, a commitment, an intention to bring ourselves to be the purest, kindest, most transcendent being that we can be. This was the intention for us of all the great teachers. And this is the intention for us of our Lord. Let us fulfill that intention and become the transcendent beings that he wanted us all to be. Ameen. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.